Welcome to The Art of Relationships. This podcast is produced by the Biola University Centre for Marriage and Relationships. Let's get right into it.
Hey, welcome to another episode of The Art of Relationships. I'm Alisa Grace. This is my husband, Dr. Chris Grace.
Yeah.
The doctor is in. And we are brought to you by the Biola University Center for Marriage and Relationships. So, Chris, today we have a really great topic that I know that we love discussing as parents of 3 kids ourselves, now grandparents even. One of the topics that we want to tackle today is parenting.
Okay.
And so looking at some 2 of the leading parenting theories and methods. So unpacking that a little bit, looking at the difference between gentle parenting and tough love, maybe unpacking a little bit why is it even important? Why do we need to know that? How would you define it? And then what is the healthiest way to move forward?
Yeah, I think my favorite saying when our kids were little were, hey,
Ask your mom.
yeah, ask your mom. And then it was the 3 S's: sit down, shut up, and stop driving me crazy. I don't know where that falls. We now taught all of our kids, and we've now started teaching in our grandkids as well, that whenever I raise my voice, they're to say, yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
And if you guys want to do this, here's the best parenting tip of all time. I tell them, if I tell you to sit down and obey me, what do you say? And I tell you, the answer is say, yes, sir. And they say, yes, sir. I say, that's right. If I tell you to sit here, now, it sometimes takes a piece of candy that first time said, then I'm, all right, now ready? Good job, here's some candy. Now, if I tell you to go to bed right now, what do you say? And they say, yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
That's it. That's right. I think, Lisa, those are some of our favorite parenting examples. I think my other favorite one when it comes to tough love and parenting and or permissive is the other one is teaching them a play, like jumping on the bed, and then I knock them with the pillow, and they just think it's the funniest thing in the world.
My God.
And I say, I'm going to whoop you good.
Uh-huh.
And so all of our kids, I did that. You want me to whoop you? And after a few minutes of play, they're like, yeah, I'm going to whoop you. And I knock them over. Well, that phrase can be used amazingly, right? I see him all the time in the day. Daddy, will you whoop us? And I think, man, I love parenting. Yes, I'm going to whoop you. But first, you need to finish your dinner and take your bath.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. And then you'll whoop us. Then I'm going to whoop you good. So I used to come in, Daddy, will you whoop us now? And be like, son, I don't know. Did you do your homework? Did you do that? Yeah, Daddy, I did it. He's in kindergarten. I did that. All right, well, I'll whoop you in just a little bit. Let me go get a snack. Oh, Daddy, please whoop me now.
While other parents are sitting there going,
Yeah.
what is going on? Where have I?
Yeah, we had some friends over the house. Like, Daddy, will you whoop us? I said, did you get your bath done? Yeah, Daddy, we're all bathed. We all did everything. Like, all right, give me 5 minutes. I'll whoop you. Oh, Daddy, how about in 3 minutes? All right. They're like, what kind of parenting are you?
You know what, though? As a mom, I could be in the kitchen while you're back there in the bedroom whooping up on them. And the screaming and the laughter and the giggling it just warmed my heart. And even now as a grandparent, I hear you back there roughhousing with them, the boys and the girls alike, and they adore you.
Well-
they love Gigi, but they adore Doc. Doc is his grandpa name. And they just love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it all starts with building a connection with kids, and parents are so busy, Lisa. And the question that you addressed at the beginning that we get asked all the time is, well, I want to be the parent that's liked and loved. I want them to think I'm cool, I'm fun, I'm friendly. But I also got to parent this person.
Yeah, we want them to grow up to be successful, loving, healthy adults. We want to do parenting well. And we want to do it in a way that honors God, honors our child, and honors us as parents as well.
Is it okay if one of you is the tough love and one of you is the let anything go? Because we kind of fell a little bit into that, Lisa, where you had this amazing personality. Maybe it came from a little bit of your background and your parenting, when you were a child. But
Thank you, Daddy.
yeah, that's right. And you just were a natural at it. And what I mean is this: you're a great disciplinarian. You do it with kindness and love. You hold standards, and they can't be, if they mess up, they're going to face this. You do. And I just sit there in amazement, like I'll be honest with you, I got a degree in these areas, and I turn to you to watch this. I think we fell into the pattern a little bit where you held the line, and I'm like, all right, don't tell your mom. Here's more chocolate.
There's a
Don't tell
great
mom.
commercial out there. Don't tell your mom. Have you seen that?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's funny.
So yeah, there's a little bit of that. I think it's rare to have two very tough parents, or two very permissive parents. But the odds are, maybe it's not as rare as we think.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think to your question, what if you have two like that that are really different? Because I would say if you and I had to fall into these camps, if we were forced to put ourselves in these camps, I would say that the two prevailing thoughts out there are the gentle parenting and tough love, right? I would say you probably fall more into the gentle parenting, and I fall more into the tough love.
Yeah.
However, blending us together brought a real balance, and your graceful approach really softened some of my harsher edges, and my structure really brought a little bit more firmness and structure to your approach. So together we were actually
agree.
even better.
Yeah, I agree. You had very little harshness. It was more on the love,
I don't know.
good mix of tough. But all that to say, one of the things that happens is we oftentimes parent the way we were parented, and we also have models, but we're not restricted to that. If you grew up in one of these homes that was messed up or aired, too extreme, you're not doomed to repeat that. I believe we need to let couples and people know that are starting a family, you're not doomed to repeat that. You can break that cycle, and you can do it by recognizing, how do I mix these two well?
Yeah, and I love that saying by C.S. Lewis when he says, you can't go back and change your beginning, but you can start right where you are and you can change your ending. And so it's not too late. If you don't like the way you're parenting and you're hearing some things as we go on and we discuss this, and you're hearing some things that you're like, oh gosh, that's kind of me. I'd really like to change that. It's not too late. And you can start today and change the way you parent.
Yeah, well, let's start with the first one. Let's start with maybe this idea of permissiveness. Okay?
Or gentle parenting or permissiveness? Because those are two different things.
Yeah, that's what I want. Let's draw it out.
Okay.
What's the difference between the gentle or the tough love, or I'm sorry, the gentleness, right, and permissiveness? Because there's a lot of things that can be blurred here, right?
Sure. Yeah. And in fact, I would say that probably there's gentle parenting and taken to the extreme where it's unhealthy would become permissive parenting. And then for tough love, taken to the extreme becomes harsh parenting and does damage. So let's start with gentle parenting, and just a classic textbook definition of it would be this. The focus is on emotional attunement, empathy, right, and attachment. And so gentle parenting is not just letting your kids have the run of the show and do whatever they want. That is not what we're talking about. It's about teaching them how to regulate their emotions, their feelings, meaning to manage their emotions, how to recognize them, label their emotions, and then also to be accountable for that. And to do that through an attitude of respect. And that respect comes through that emotional, personal relationship and connection between the parent and the child, as well as offering guidance within that relationship. So it's not just letting them go about do willy-nilly what they want, but it's really working with them, guiding them, building relationship with them, and helping them regulate those emotions and their behavior without resorting to punishment or shame.
Yeah, and so to bring this home, some of us have children and that are pretty mellow, pretty easy. They don't have a lot of emotional kind of
Swings, yeah.
outbreaks. But to be honest, almost every kid can go from 0 to 100 instantly,
Oh
right?
gosh, if they're 2 or 3, Or they're 13 or 14?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they can,
definitely.
so they can go to these emotional extremes. So we all know that. The question is, what do we do in the middle of that, right? You love this kid sitting there, they're having, you bring out their treat, which is a popsicle, and you hand them the popsicle and the top breaks off. And they just are like crazy mad,
yeah.
right? Because here's my
Wailing.
expectation of a popsicle and it broke. It's like, well, sweetie, it's
It's
okay.
devastating.
Yeah, and it's devastating. Well, I think that notion of attunement, right, figuring it out, what I think, Lisa, couples or people that are in that situation differ in that, but it might push in them like, yeah, ungrateful kid, just eat it. It's still there. Don't
Are you
whine.
enabling bad behavior?
Yeah,
That's the
or
word.
okay, here, honey, let me go fix it, but versus, I think, Lisa, what you called is this attunement or emotional empathy or identifying. Says, sweetie, hold on. I know this is frustrating.
Yeah.
I know this is a drag because you really like the popsicle.
Yeah.
How
You're really sad that it
and there's
broke.
no other popsicles. If there
Yeah.
was, I'd give you another one and I'd eat this one. But there's no, this is the last one, or we just picked it up. And I think recognizing and saying it's okay to be frustrated, right? It's okay. I know I get this. I'm
I would
sorry.
be frustrated too. Yeah. Validating that.
Validating that, and then being able versus don't react this way, or that strong kind of, or permissiveness. Well, let's just go buy you another one, honey. Stop. I'll go get two more, you know. And pretty soon that kid learns, all right, this permissive parent's pretty easy. All I got to do is wail and scream and not be happy, and they're going to go buy me something like. Who's the one, that in Willy Wonka, she got everything she ever wanted,
Oh,
the
yeah.
violet, whatever.
Yeah.
And, anything she wanted because it was too permissive.
Right, exactly. And so let's say that you have a child that has not followed your instructions to clean their room, right? And said, "Honey, you need to go pick up your toys, and we'll get ready for bed." And let's say they don't do it. Okay, so a permissive parenting might be like, "Oh, don't worry about it. I'll go in and pick them up. We just need to get you in the bathtub. Don't worry." So I'll just go do it, right? A permissive parenting is it's a kind of peace at any cost.
It's avoidance.
Kind of parenting.
oftentimes,
Yeah, you just want to avoid the fight. You want to avoid the conflict. So I'll just do it, or just let it go because we don't want an outburst. Whereas with the gentle parenting, it would be, in a healthy way, saying, come to the child that hasn't picked up their toys. Sweetheart, you need to pick up your toys. Because we need to have our house clean before we go to bed, because everybody else has to live in our house too. And so nobody likes to live in a mess. So I need you to pick up your toys, and then we're going to go get in the bathtub. And let's say that they still haven't done it. You come back in 5 minutes and they still haven't
or
done
they
it.
scream and yell, and
Or they're having a
crying.
tantrum.
Right.
Yes. So then in gentle parenting, what that would look like is you acknowledge their frustration. Sweetheart, I can see that you're feeling very frustrated and upset about having to pick up your toys. It's not very fun, is it? You know what? I don't like having to pick up either. That's not a fun part of my day either. But you know what? Sometimes we have to do things that we don't like doing because it's the right thing to do. And so because you didn't pick up your toys today when I asked you to, then we're going to have to leave the toys in the closet tomorrow and we can't play with them. But we'll be able to take them out the day after that. And so you've set the expectation. I expect you to pick up your toys by the time I get back. They haven't followed through. You empathize with them. You acknowledge their emotions and how they feel about it. Maybe it's not the funnest thing to pick up. But when they still don't follow through, then you have a natural cause and effect. Well, the cause is you didn't obey and pick up your toys. So the effect or consequences is that now we don't get to play with toys tomorrow. I'm so sorry. And what you may find is that kids, even as you start holding that boundary, that they act out even more because they don't like that boundary.
Right.
But then if you are consistent, you follow through, you're kind, there's no anger, there's no, or you may be angry, but there's no acting out in anger as a parent, right? You as the adult are managing your own emotions. You're regulating your own emotions about this, but you're doing it in a very calm, very matter-of-fact way, acknowledging respecting theirs, validating it, and following through with a consequence. That means the next day when they want to pull out their toys, I'm so sorry. You didn't pick them up yesterday. And so they have to stay in the closet today.
Yeah.
And so that may be, I think, one of the drawbacks of gentle parenting that makes it so hard. It's so effective and very healthy, but makes it so hard is the follow through. Because now, if they don't have their toys to play with while I'm trying to make dinner, now what am I going to do as the parent? How am I going to keep them busy so I can get done what I need to get done? Well, maybe that means, maybe they lost the privilege of getting to go to the park with, on our play day on Tuesdays because you didn't clean your room. Now we don't get to go to the park. Oh, well, then that means now I don't get to go to the park. I don't get the break. I don't get to go see my mom friends. And so that impacts me as well. And so there's a cost to this kind of parenting where you set clear boundaries and you follow through because it's going to impact you as well.
Yeah.
But you have to do it. You have to have that follow through, or else your child is going to learn, don't worry about it, she'll give in. And then you've lost all control. They learn they can run the show,
Yeah.
but then they don't have the emotional, mental, cognitive equipping to run the show. And so what ends up happening when you don't follow through, when you don't set those boundaries and follow through, your children tend to become more anxious and depressed because they feel the insecurity of no boundaries. If you put boundaries around the yard, then they can play healthy because they know how far they can go. They know I can go to this far as the fence, and this place I can play in this area with no problem. I'm not going to be yelled at. I'm not going to get consequences. I'm not going to get hurt because this is safe. But if there's no boundary and you're just saying go out there and play, well, I don't feel as secure about that because I don't know how far I can go. I don't know if I take one more step, am I going to get in trouble? And that's very disconcerting for children. They need structure. They long for structure, even though they may not like it at the time.
You said, yes, that's really good. And what do you say? You said it was hard for you to make the follow through the next day, right?
Yeah, it'll have a cost to the parents too. Sure.
Yeah, because there's a cost. But what ended up happening, I noticed with our kids and grandkids and learning from you, it seems like that saved and created an environment that was healthy, fun, safe, with boundaries. For the future, it was a whole lot easier. The first time might be hard, but then the next time I would hear you say, listen, if you don't pick up your toys, we're going to put them away for the next day. And they're like, oh no, right?
Yeah, they learn that you mean business when you follow through.
Yeah. Boy, for some of us, at least that's hard. I mean, you've landed on this, you do it naturally. What advice would you give to those who say, but it's so hard to see them sad the next day?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I guess what you do is you say, well, you know what?
Yeah, well, you can see that it is hard. Nobody likes to see their child cry or be sad or frustrated.
Yeah, they missed their Tuesday play date.
Yeah, and that's a bummer. I miss it too. And so I can understand and identify with that emotion with them. But you have to think the long game in parenting, because if I give in now, short term, to make them feel comfortable, then long term, they are going to lose the ability to navigate and learn how to manage and regulate their own emotions. They are not going to learn how to be accountable with their chores and expectations, and that's going to affect them at school. That's going to affect them with their friendships. That's going to affect them when they're adults in their job, because we all have to meet certain expectations, manage our emotions, and be held accountable for certain societal expectations, right? And so if our job as parents is to help them begin to learn that when they're little in these small things, so that it bears fruit in the big things later on, because they will encounter these later on.
Yeah. What I really appreciate about that and about your style in that is even as you say things like, I know it's hard today. I'm sad too. Is even as you said that, I felt heard and understood, even as you're talking about it, like, oh, okay, well, she's with me. Right. And so
Yeah.
you also have to be very careful not careful, but you have to be very clear that, yeah, this really is bad. And I don't like
Mhm.
it either. But it does make the kid feel like, all right, this is the limit. You know, at least what you did well is what I was trained to do in working with, emotionally and behaviorally disturbed kids. It's the same concept, right? Many of them pushed boundaries, and that's why they had to, were sent by the courts to the places that I worked. And we learned that same kind of thing. But what was interesting is these kids always found out who you were. They tested you right away, and they knew who was permissive, they knew who was tough love, they knew who was too authoritarian, and they knew, therefore, and they liked, okay, all the kids at the very end, you could see who they kind of admired, valued, and looked up to. It wasn't the permissive one, the one that would give them anything. Right? There was one of our staff members. She was a counselor, female, and she was so permissive. It'd be like, "Yeah, don't tell anybody. Go ahead and go do this," Or yeah, just go. Here, just
Yeah.
hide that thing in there. I know you took an extra dessert. Just I'm not gonna. Well, they liked her because she was so permissive, but they didn't respect her.
Respect her. Yeah.
And she didn't
It's
do
huge.
well, and she had favorites, and everybody knew. Okay, the one that was too authoritarian, that wouldn't listen to them, that was just, nope, this is it, black and white, you did it, you're out, boom. They feared that person,
Yeah.
but they didn't respect them either.
Yeah.
It was those
Fear and respect are very different.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I learned even with our kids, but especially with that group of a tough kid, one that's harder to, it was the almost softness, with the holding the rules, but recognizing what you just said. This
Yeah.
is hard. I understand. I know that,
Yeah.
you tried hard here. I know it's going to be hard for you to be on, red versus
Yeah.
green, which was you could do you can go and have fun,
Yeah.
and take advantage of all the things that these places offered. You can go on the field trips, but you're on yellow, watch out. But if you're on red, you're restricted. But if you did it the right way, Lisa, like you're talking about, we really found that to be the most effective and the most respected and loved counselors were those that did that.
That's really
Yeah.
interesting.
Well, when it comes to money and marriage, we all want clarity and confidence, right? And especially unity with spouses, right? I think, Lisa, that's why we get to work personally with Colby Gilmore of Blue Trust.
That's right. Colby Gilmore, along with other Blue Trust certified wealth strategists, offers personalized, biblically centered financial planning and investment management services, no matter what your income level is.
Lisa, say that title twice. Blue Trust Certified Wealth Strategist. That's a tough
I'm not sure I could.
I know. So they do put clients' best interest first, and they don't sell financial products. I love that about them.
Me too. And you know what? We highly recommend Colby Gilmore and Blue Trust for anyone looking for both financial unity with your spouse and opportunities to increase your wealth and your generosity.
Yeah. So if you guys want to check out ronblue.com or reach out to Colby Gilmore at colby.gilmore at ronblue.com. That's colby.gilmore at ronblue.com. I think you guys will be glad you did.
So, what's the next kind of extreme to be careful of? If you have one, right, we would call it permissive, right?
Yeah, right.
That's one. What's another one?
Well, that one really goes with gentle parenting, but
Yeah.
but I tell you what, let's unpack the tough love one
Yeah,
first, and then we can look.
That's the second one, right? You have permissive versus. Oh, are you talking about tough love, the good one?
Right,
Yeah. Okay.
right.
Let's do
Tough
that.
one.
Sure.
Yeah, because I mean, both of the approaches have some pros and have some cons. And so when we talk about tough love, this is what we're talking about. Tough love emphasizes structure, it emphasizes discipline and recognizing and respecting authority. Right, the extreme of it and the con of it is that sometimes it can be overly rigid and authoritarian versus authoritative, and so
Good difference between authoritative and authoritarian, right? And are you going to draw that one out?
yeah, I think it'll naturally come out
Okay.
as we talk about it. But
Just to set them up, though, right?
Right.
Authoritarian is what we would say is this is my way, and it's the right way, and it's
Because I
the
said
only
so.
way because I said so. I don't care about any excuses. I don't care about I had this, I did it this way. It doesn't matter,
Right.
Authoritative is the stronger, same strength.
Right.
I'm the one in authority, but there's also an ability to
reason,
and to
talk,
listen, and
listen.
to hear. Okay,
Yes,
so
I love that. Okay. And so when we talk about tough love parenting, it can also involve setting limits and boundaries and expressing certain expectations and then holding the child accountable for those things. And when it's done well, it also involves like what you're talking about with authoritative parenting and tough love parenting would be that you're also building relationship, listening, and understanding. And so, taken to the extreme would be the harsh, the authoritarian, and what you were talking about that you need to clean your room because I said so.
right.
As opposed to, why do I have to clean my room? Well, you know what? That's a really good question because there's other people in our family that live here, and they don't really like living in a mess either. And so we have to be sensitive to living with other people. Now, when is that going to come to play down the road?
Yeah.
Right? When they're in college with a roommate, when they get married, perhaps, or they have a roommate outside of college. Other people, the way they keep their area around them impacts other people. And so tough love the goal is to help them understand that, see the natural outplay of why it's important. Maybe it's your teen and doing homework. You come home, like what we did with homework time. With our teens in junior high and high school is like, yeah, you come home, it's 3:30 or maybe it's 5:30 or 6:30 if they're doing sports, extracurricular activities. We give them, 30 minutes, 45 minutes, an hour to really decompress, just relax, have a snack, take your shoes off and just be for a little while, right? Acknowledging you've had a day too. And then at the end of that hour, that half hour, that hour, then it's time to turn the TV off, turn the video games off, and you need to start homework. And so after you get homework done, then, you can watch TV for another hour. You can play video games for another hour, but you need to get the homework done. And so in terms of tough love, if your goal is you want to exercise structure, you want to put that in place, you want to outline, hey, listen, these are the boundaries and these are my expectations, is that you'll get your homework done before. And then afterwards, you get a reward. That's awesome. You get to do. And if you don't get that homework done, then there's consequences. And maybe that it is tomorrow, no video games tomorrow. Or tomorrow, you've got to come home. You can't go over to your friend's house that you were planning to. You need to come home, do your homework, or maybe you come home, do your homework, and no additional video games. There's a consequence. And then when tomorrow comes, you follow through. So when it comes to tough love, you're setting structure, you're setting boundaries, you're communicating clear expectations. And let's say that they're like, but mom, I really want, my friends are playing this game. I know it's during homework time, but they have this special thing going on where they're all playing. Could I put my homework off till that? Okay, let's say that, okay, that's not an everyday kind of thing. I can go for that. Go ahead and do that. But at 8 o'clock, that's the hard stop. If y'all are still playing, then you have to agree that 8 o'clock's the hard stop and you come and do your homework. And then say you walk in, it's 8:15 and they're still playing. Oh, man, You were supposed to stop at 8 o'clock. Man, that's too bad because now you don't get to go to your friend's house tomorrow. Man, that's a bummer. Now you don't get to play video games tomorrow. And, of course, oh, come on, Mom, come on, Mom, come on, Dad. But it's like, yeah, I'm sorry, that's a bummer. I would want to do that too, but I can see why you'd be upset, but that's our rule. And then you follow through. And Chris, oh, go ahead. You're gonna.
That's all. That's okay.
I was thinking about this as we were doing prep for this podcast and really looking at gentle parenting, looking at tough love. And I know there's two really distinct camps out there with you, especially with younger parents right now. It's a big deal. It's a big deal. And tough love can look, like we talked about, very authoritarian, very overbearing, very harsh. And parents are kind of leaning more towards that gentle parenting. But what I discovered as I was really unpacking this and doing the research on this is that when you do gentle parenting well, when you do tough love well,
They look alike, don't they?
they look an awful lot alike. The problem comes when you fall to the extremes of being too permissive or being too harsh. And so, go ahead.
Well, let's talk about then that too harsh, right? I mean, that's the so you describe the boundaries of permissiveness, right? And the extreme. The extreme of the authoritarian, to become authoritarian would be the extreme. And Lisa, what does that look like? I mean, I think it looks like a parent out of control many times, right? Maybe the parent's angry when they, find at 8:15 they're still playing, and they take it out and they smash, the game console, or they grab it and you'll never play again. And I told you, and this is it, right? I
Yeah,
mean,
you'll never play it. Yeah.
yeah,
That's
in
great.
some ways, it's a parent that has allowed this anger to get a hold of them.
Oh, you've left your toys in the floor again? Well, I'm just going to throw them away.
Yeah.
We're just throwing them away. We're going to go give them away to other kids that don't have toys that appreciate them more than you.
And I'll show you who's in charge here. And there's a fine balance, right? Do you think emotion in the parent is one of the major differences between, the authoritative and authoritarian? And what else, right? What else is the difference then?
Yeah, I think it's the willingness to listen, to understand your child.
Okay.
Right? You not only want the behavior, you don't only want them to be obedient, but you, like you said, you want them to feel seen and heard, and like they are important. That they're when all you do is shut down their emotions and you don't listen, you don't take it into account, you don't validate it. Even if you don't agree with it, you need to validate their right to their perspective, even if it's skewed. It doesn't go with yours, but you take the time to listen, to reflect back to them. Paraphrase what I hear you saying, honey, is when you don't get to go with your friends tomorrow, you had a big outing, that feels really frustrating and then really disappointing to you because you were looking forward to being with your friends.
I'll play the role. Ready?
Yeah.
But I only played 15 extra minutes. It was till 8:15. That just seems too harsh, too mean. What would you say?
So what you're saying is that from your perspective, that 15 minutes doesn't sound like it's that big a deal that would warrant such a harsh punishment in
I
your
only
perspective.
have
Is
10
that
minutes
right?
of homework, which I could do right away.
Okay. And so what you're saying is that, gee, you only had a little bit of homework, and now you're having to miss this whole thing because of 10 minutes of homework.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
And that doesn't sound like it's from your perspective, that doesn't sound very fair.
No, I
Is that
think you're
right?
an evil witch. That's what you're.
That's a different
That was the
podcast.
thought right there. I think you're an evil mom. No, but you'd like, no, I think that's mean.
Well, let's say you did say that. You're acting like a witch or the viewer because of that. And so you're feeling like I'm just being completely unfair. Is that right? And it's like I can understand that. When I was 15, I probably felt the same way too. I could totally get that. Or two key words, and or nevertheless. We had a limit of 8 o'clock. We both agreed to that, and you went over. And so we're still going to have to not have that time with your friends tomorrow. And
And that presupposes, Lisa, one cool thing as you get ready to finish this, and that is we both agreed to this,
Correct.
and you hold them to it. Say, now wait a minute, hold on. Do you agree that at 8 o'clock you're turning this off? I'll let you play,
yeah.
but it has to be off. Do you agree? If not,
Right.
there's consequences.
And then they learn accountability to holding to their word, sticking to the word.
Good.
They learn that you're not a pushover and that you hear them, you understand them, and there still is a clear consequence, a natural consequence. And pretty soon, the next time, you can bet when 8 o'clock, they agree to 8 o'clock and 8 o'clock comes around, boom, or maybe it's 2 or 3 times they have to miss their special event until they learn that you mean business as a parent and you're following through, but you do it with understanding, a willingness to listen and to empathize and to validate their perspective, and you still follow through.
Well, I'm going to tell all of our listeners right now, do this. If you're me, it's like, oh man, I wish I could do that. How do you do that? I would say go back and re-listen to what Alisa just said, how she does it. Go back, pause, re-listen to it, and then do it. The outcome is, I'll be honest with you, Drew, Natalie, Caroline, Brinley, Brody, Nolan, you guys have no chance. You're gonna lose, and you're gonna love it. You're gonna love her, and you're going to want her to be your mom. And so I apologize to you guys ahead of time. You are way out of your league
No.
growing up as kids.
And they have their own parents are so good. So they've learned really healthy, good parenting as well.
No, they have great They are great parents. That's the cool thing, and they're following you, not me.
No.
Well,
That's not true.
in many ways, yeah. I
That's not
just would say go talk to your mom, and then don't tell your mom. Those are my two favorite things. Go talk to your mom, and then don't tell your mom. And then I'd say, "You want me to whoop you?" And they say, "Yes, sir."
Yes,
I'm like,
sir.
"All right, there we go." And we got it all set up, and I'll whoop you, but you go talk to your mom first. But I would say, Lisa, just for all of our listeners, listen to the way you do it. It has worked. It's proven. It's psychologically sound. Research-wise, it is exactly the way we train our students to go work with not just normal kids, but kids that are on those borders or periphery, right? Emotionally behaviorally disturbed. And exactly the way you're doing this. I mean, it's based on, and when you talk about honoring and respect, and we talk about what God has called us to, right? It's also very biblical in that regard.
Yeah.
So
Very much. And so, Chris, if let's just wrap up here with, so what are next steps?
Yep.
Where do you start when either you're entering this new foray of parenting as parents, you're having kids or a young family, or maybe you've been at it for a little while, a couple of years, and things are not going well?
first step, I already told you, go back and re-listen to this. Second thing, and then you add some. Second thing is, I would go hang around parents that have young children that you know or that you've seen, whether they're a good model or a bad model. Go hang around with them. Go over to their house. Ask if you can come over for dinner. Ask if, and then watch and see, oh, that's interesting. That's effective. That's not very effective, what they do. And then ask them, how do you do this well?
Yeah.
Hey, I'm taking a class on this, or hey, we're about to have kids, or hey, we have a little baby and we want to do it well. What if, and watch for a model if you don't have one at your own home.
So mentors.
Yeah,
Some
well,
parenting
yeah,
mentors.
you don't even have to call them mentors. You're just going to go take notes and just watch. So what's the
I love that. And I think also what we want to do is maybe take a step back and just do a self-assessment. Maybe do a couple assessment of, where do I fall on this line? Where do we fall on this line between permissive, gentle parenting, tough love, being harsh? Where do we fall on that line? And you may be different from your spouse, but you want to just take some time to assess and figure out, do I lean more towards the
Easy,
the easy, yeah, being, let's call them love and limits, right? Two different sides of the same coin, love and limits. Do I tend to lean more heavily on the love and the gentleness to where I'm being a little too permissive? Or do I lean more towards the tough love and maybe even towards being too harsh? So maybe do that self-assessment. And especially one way to find out, maybe you feel like, I think like for me, maybe I fall too much on the tough love side. You know what? I'm gonna ask my kids and I want to get their feedback from their perspective. Maybe not right in the middle of the conflict
maybe
because you
not
know
when-
what you're going to get.
Not when they're 2 or 3.
Right, yeah, not when they're 2 or 3. But let's say you have some elementary school age and up. And you just say, you talk to your child and ask them, get their opinion. Hey, where do you see, do I fall on this line here? What do you see? Am I too harsh? Am I in the middle, pretty good? Am I too easy?
Okay.
What's your perspective? Oh, go ahead.
You know, you can ask your kids.
Yeah.
You can talk to mentors. You can talk to each other.
Yeah.
You can ask a friend. Right?
Yeah, and if you're too tough, then maybe what you want to do is practice listening to understand and validating. Put yourself in your child's shoes and try to see it from their perspective. So I think that's one way to start riding that ship is to practice those things. If you're leaning a little bit too much on the gentle parenting side to where you're maybe letting a couple things slide that you shouldn't, then that's where you start figuring out, where can I put in some structure and some boundaries and then follow through. And then understanding that, especially if it's the case of you haven't had boundaries, you've been a little bit too permissive, the kids are starting to run the show, then just be aware of what we call an extinction burst. And that is where you start putting boundaries in place and the child doesn't like it and they react to it. And so expect that that's going to happen. You start putting a boundary, they're going to push up against it because they're used to not only pushing it, but going past it and not having any repercussions. And so they're going to keep pushing against it to see if they can get past it. And they're not going to like it and they may act out. But that will last just for a short amount of time until it begins to stabilize because they realize you mean business and you're following through. And so, those habits, those bad habits on either side didn't happen overnight, right? It's like trying to turn an ocean liner, right, versus a speedboat. Well, it didn't happen overnight, so you're not going to change everything overnight. Give yourself some grace. Give your child some grace, a lot of patience, and then praying and asking the Lord for wisdom and discernment in your parenting, asking the Lord for unity between the two of you because you have to be on the same page as parents. If not, then you've got two battlefronts and you're going to lose the war. You've got to be on the same page as parents.
And being on the same page oftentimes meant that for me, while I may have at the moment disagreed with the limit you had placed, it was not the moment or time to disagree with you in front of the kids. Say, no, Lisa, you're to this. You need to know, don't do it that way. Add this into it. And so be unified in that front, or you're really going to be divided, right?
Right. And if you don't agree, what you're saying is don't disagree and undermine the stronger parent in front of the child.
Yeah, wait.
You have that conversation behind closed doors when you're not in the middle of it.
Yeah.
And maybe you need to call a timeout with your kid in the middle of the conflict and say, you know what? Boom, timeout. Let's push a pause button. Dad and I need to have a conversation, and we're going to be back. We'll be back here in just a couple of minutes.
Yeah, we did. One time we called it timeout, so we're going to be back in a couple of years. You guys, and so that timeout was awesome. I remember that. That was like a 2-year timeout. It was beautiful.
Boy, that can be the temptation though, because you want to avoid conflict. and I don't like conflict. So anyway, really just put some of these steps in place. Expect that it's not going to happen overnight, but with clarity of your boundaries, your expectations, listening to understand, validate, follow through, and build that relationship outside of these things with your child. Because when you try to exert this kind of interaction with your child without having a good relationship in place, it's going to lead to rebellion and bitterness. So build that relationship, have fun, listen to understand, follow through.
Yeah, and just one shout out to those that are kind of the avoiders or the authoritarian, not always the men, but in many cases it's easy for one to go, I'm just going to leave them alone. I'll let her do all of this. I will let them take care of this. I'm just going to come in. I just want peace in the house. Leave me out of this. I'm going to call you out, man. It's time to step up, get involved, know your spouse, but also know your kids and be involved in their lives.
No good cop, bad cop.
No, it's a time to be unified. It's one cop, and a very strong one at that. So, Lisa, thanks, man. You have great insights on these.
Well,
I think
you
keep
too.
playing them back. Thank you for sharing all these great ways of doing and the practical ways of doing parenting well.
Yeah,
All right.
and a couple of really good resources I want to throw out there before we get done here today. Number one is it's called The Art of Parenting. It's an online. I think it's a 6-week online series that's put out by Family Life called The Art of Parenting. You can do it either in the privacy of your own home. You could gather some other parents together with you and do a small group study on parenting for 6 weeks. You could do it in a Sunday school class or at church. Excellent resource.
Yeah, we
The
call
Art of
out
Parenting.
Family Life. It is awesome.
Yeah, excellent resource. Another really great book is Boundaries with Kids by John Townsend.
Cloud and Townsend.
Henry Cloud and John Townsend. Excellent book. They have boundaries with kids and boundaries with teens. Excellent resource. But thanks for joining us today. We loved having you with us here. We know that you have a number of things that you could be doing today besides hopping on to this podcast. So, good for you for investing in your family, your relationships, your parenting. And we're really glad that you joined us today. Thanks.
Yep. Thank you, guys.
See you next time.
We're very glad you joined us for today's podcast. For more resources on marriage and healthy relationships, please visit our website at cmr.biola.edu. We'll see you next time on The Art of Relationships.